Ladies and gentlemen, we have a dandy for you today. This is exactly, when we thought about this podcast, this is exactly the kind of guest that we were excited to have on this podcast. Arguably the greatest golfing member of Congress of all time. We'll hear more about that as we go on, but this is a show called Golf and Politics. We're definitely going to get that today. So Rob, thank you for organizing this. If you want to introduce former Congressman Russo, we would love that.
Well, it's hard for me to be overly formal introducing Congressman Russo because he is family to me. You know, he's like another father, and I play a lot of golf with him, and he's been a mentor and a friend and a family member. So I'm anxious for all of you to get to hear some of his best stories, and I'm anxious to hear them again as well. For those of you who don't know Congressman Russo, he served in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1975 to 1993, representing Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, which is South Chicago. The congressman was a heavy hitter on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the tax writing committee in the House. They oversee the tax code, Social Security, a lot of the big programs that every American relies on or has to deal with on a daily basis. The congressman was essentially a chief deputy to Speaker Tip O'Neill and to Chairman Rostenkowski. During his time in Congress, he was, I think, universally known as the best golfer. But even more importantly than that, he had the lost art of bipartisanship, of being willing to work across the aisle. He represented a overwhelmingly Republican district as a Democrat for nearly 20 years, and was able to make friends with people that you wouldn't think he'd be friends with, especially in today's environment. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off a little bit. And my first, Congressman, is what has changed in the Congress with how, just on a personal level, on how members are today versus your time in office?
Well, I think the biggest change is that they don't get along at all. The word compromise no longer exists. Going across the aisle is considered taboo, and if you do it, you get penalized, as we've seen over the last several years. It's unfortunate because the way the founders set up our country was they wanted compromise. That's why they did a republic and not a parliamentary system. But based on what goes on today in the House of Representatives, it's basically a parliamentary system. Whoever has control of the speakership gets basically 100%, even though you may have 50.1% of the members, you get 100% of what you want to get done. Although I have to say, given this recent issues where Speaker Johnson has had to rely heavily on Democrats to pass major issues under suspension of rules, is something that I would have never dreamt possible, and certainly didn't happen in our day. Either you had the votes or you don't take it to the floor. But today, it's a whole different world. It's like nothing I've ever seen. And I'm not so sure it's good. What happens here is that it requires the members to go along with something they may not have seen except for maybe 20 minutes. And you're supposed to vote on it. When we came to Congress in 1974, we kind of upset the seniority system. And it was, we diffused power. We had more members of Congress involved. And now we went from that to where the leadership runs everything. And now they coined a word that I didn't know in my day, which the four corners. In order to get something passed, you have to have the four corners agree to it. And then it goes up to the leadership and see if they agree with it. I've never dealt with that. It's why the Congress doesn't operate very well. And it's why the public is very disgusted with it. It's like we're not addressing the issues that they really care about.
So for some of our viewers who haven't watched how a bill becomes a law in a while, essentially a bill gets introduced, it gets referred to the committee of jurisdiction, There's a subcommittee hearing, a full committee hearing. They mark it up, which means they amend it, and then it goes to the House floor. That's called regular order. And today, you're not seeing that. The leadership just sort of airdrops the bill into committee and both sides, and members don't really have a say in it. How do we fix something like that?
Well, I don't. Well, it takes compromise to fix something like that. You're going to have to get Democrats and Republicans to finally say, "Look, the country comes first." Well, I think what happens, Rob and Matt.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand that candidates are chosen in primaries, not in general elections. And so, who shows up in primaries? Usually the far right and the far left. So that's where the candidates end up being. So by the time you get to the general, so-called middle of America doesn't have a choice for a moderate Democrat or Republican because it's too late. So if you're really trying to have an effect in an election and make a change, you have to make a change in people's attitudes about going to primaries. Because
what made you unique? Sorry, Matt. What made you? Because your reputation was as a member of Congress that could work deals with Republicans. I mean, you're a tall, imposing, charismatic guy, but beyond that, what made Republicans willing to work with you?
Well, I think part of it is that we all ultimately had the same goal, which was to get things done for the country. They had one view, we had another view. The question is, how do we meld and put that together? And that's what we did. I mean, there's several Republicans that I was very close to. People wouldn't believe it, but Danny Quayle to this day is one of my closest friends. I worked very closely with Henry Hyde on a lot of issues from the state of Illinois. So, and we traveled together too. We did travel and go to other, and as a result, we got to know each other's families. We've seen each other in action, and we actually ended up liking each other. One of my closest friends was Guy Vanderjagt, who headed the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee, was on Ways and Means, and we got to know him and his wife, Mary. It was just wonderful. So I don't think they do that anymore. I think it's too much. We're going to do it our way, and that's the only way to do it. But there's hope. There's always hope that somewhere down the line, people will realize that the country comes first, and they'll work it out. I mean, no one's to say that the Democrats have the right idea or the Republicans have the right idea. The idea is, how do we make a compromise that benefit the country as a whole? And that's what we have to do. And it's going to take a different type of leadership than we have today.
Well, it's refreshing to hear this talk because I work as a political consultant, strategist, do campaign advertising. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this podcast is because I need some kind of creative outlet apart from writing Republican primary direct mail copy that is just the same things in every district. When I started working in politics over 20 years ago, the member of Congress that Rob and I both worked for, he used to say over and over again, all politics is local. And now it's all politics are national. I find myself in a county commission race, city council race, talking about the national issues that Republicans are seeing on Fox News because that's what drives their emotional decisions and where they vote. And it's crazy. And you got elected 9 times in a Republican district. In fact, it was such a Republican district that Nixon beat McGovern, I believe, by 40 points in 1972. You were elected in 1974. You obviously appealed to swing voters. So 2-part question. 1, how did you appeal to swing voters? And number 2, why are there so few swing voters today? Because my busiest time of the year is during Republican primaries. It's not in the general election because in Congress, there's only 20 seats that are actually 20 to 30 seats that are truly up for grabs. And in state legislatures across the country, it's the same way.
Well, I like to say I was this great, charismatic, good-looking guy that made all the right decisions, except that it was Watergate. I got lucky that I ran in a time where something like Watergate happened. And in my district, which was 2-1 Republican, when I ran, about 55% of Republicans stayed home in the 1974 election. For example, my opponent in 1972 got 125,000 votes. He got 55,000 votes
Wow.
in 1974, and I beat him by 6,600 votes. So I got almost 90% of the Democrats that voted in 72. He got 45% of the Republicans who voted in 72. So, that was really just being in the right place at the right time. And the question was, how do you stay there knowing that you have such a marginal district? And so I just went home every weekend. I went everywhere I could possibly go, every meeting, every sock hop, baseball game, football, little league, you name it. I would do anywhere to 6-7 events every night that I was in town. Then I would head to Washington and recover. But that's, when people see you, they touch you and feel you, they know who you are, they see you at the food store, we call it Jewel Food Store, they see you at the train station, they see you doing things that they do, they like that. And I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed campaigning. It was a lot of fun, especially after the first one, which was very difficult. It's a lot easier when they say, "Hi, Congressman, how you doing?" versus, "My name is Marty Russo. I'm running for Congress in the 3rd District." Who? But that, look at some of my best friends I had were Republicans. And Bob Michael from Illinois was one of my closest friends. Tom Railsback from Illinois was one of my closest friends. Bob Michael. Later on, Mike Oxley, Jack Fields, Danny Quayle. So it was fun to do that. I mean, we would argue and disagree, but then eventually, in the end, compromise was what had to happen. You could see Tip O'Neill and Bob Michael going at it on the floor. Then 5 hours later, you see him at dinner at one of the nice Italian restaurants, hopefully not Irish, in D.C. And that sent a message to everybody. They can fight like cats and dogs on the House floor, but it wasn't personal. Today, it's personal. I think that's how I would say.
What do you think changed that caused that? And Rob, I'd love to hear some of your input on this too. At being in the process right now, lobbying, because I look at polling numbers and then I drive narratives on campaigns. I'd love to get back to trying to identify swing voters and persuade them to vote for my candidate.
I think gerrymandering is the biggest reason the way it is today. I mean, there are so many, like you just said, 20-some seats are the ones that are in play. There's only 435, so there's only 21 seats. So it means there's 415 seats that are predetermined before you even run, because the districts are so Democrat or so Republican. So gerrymandering I think, is the biggest reason why you have the problems you have today.
I can only speak to my lifetime on this, Matt, but the Congress was always partisan. It's always been, two sides fighting over a fixed pool of resources. The first change I would point to would be Newt Gingrich as Speaker. I think it went from being partisan to being mean. It became more of a blood sport at that point. And every change he made to sort of consolidate power in the Speaker's office, every Speaker since has kept, until probably McCarthy when he gave a little bit away. So I think the isolating power in leadership offices, getting rid of regular order hurt things. I think gerrymandering has hurt things. I think social media and cable news have hurt things. Everybody knows that. The endless campaign, the endless drive for money. But beyond all of that, I think that, in Congressman Russo's day, members of Congress spent more time with their families and getting to know each other, traveling, their spouses knew each other. It's a lot harder to go on a show like this and call your opponent a communist or a fascist if you're friends, if you play golf together, if your spouses are friends, if your kids go to school together. That has definitely changed. And I think one other point is in 2006 to 2010, the country was upset with George Bush, and a lot of moderate Republicans lost to blue dog Democrats who were also moderates. And so wasn't a major change in the tenor and tone of the Congress. In 2010, when the country was upset with Barack Obama, all of these Northeast and Southern moderate Democrats got blown out. And they weren't replaced by moderate Republicans. They were replaced by Tea Party members whose mission was to come to Washington, flip the table over, and say no all the time. And since 2010, I have seen a totally different, harder to work with Congress each term. And I don't see it improving. I have hope that one day it will. But we've lost all the middle of the road guys who either can't get through their primary or they're getting redistricted and beat by somebody a lot more extreme than they are.
Well, Congressman, were there any of these bomb throwers, flamethrowers, whatever you want to call them, during your time in Congress? Obviously, there had to have been a lot less of them, but were there some that existed, and how did they get treated by their colleagues?
Well, I mean, I don't know that we had. Listen, Newt Gingrich came in 1976, so I had to deal with that for a while. But the bottom line is, everybody had a role to play, and the opposition party was doing everything they can to stall legislation, to change legislation, and gum up the works a little bit so they can get what they wanted. Because in the House, if you control the Rules Committee and you have the numbers, you can do whatever you want. But that wasn't true in our days because we had 80 Southern Democrats who rarely voted with us. And so we had to build coalitions, and the people we made coalitions with were the Northeast Republicans and some Midwest Republicans who would vote with us to give us the 218 that we needed. So, I wouldn't characterize the people that we had as bomb throwers as much as I would say that they were individuals whose job was to hold us accountable because they were in the minority. One of them is now one of my dearest friends. His name was Bob Walker from Pennsylvania. And Bob knew the rules really well. He knew how to gum the works up in order to to slow the process down, to try to work things out on behalf of his leadership. I mean, people didn't like him that much, but the bottom line is he knew what he was doing. That was his job. And so he carried it out. But you have to respect somebody who knows the rules, who understands I'm fighting for my minority positions. Otherwise, I'm going to get bowled over every time the Democrats come up on the floor. So it forces compromise when you have issues like that. And so I would say we had real bomb throwers, although I think Newt played a little bit of a role on that part as it came down the line.
Well, what's interesting, Bob Michael, I've yet to meet a former Democratic member of Congress who says anything bad about Bob Michael. And one of the criticisms of Bob Michael from Republicans was that he was too nice. And since then, when Kevin McCarthy came back into leadership, one of the first moves he made was to take away Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer's offices in the Capitol, their personal space, and make them go back across the street with the junior members. And it reminded me of a lesson I learned from John Boehner. John Boehner told me, keep them happy in the minority. Keep them happy. Increase their budget. Give them more seats on the committee. You don't want them to get restless and try to come after you. And today it's like, how can I, embarrass the other side or stick it to them? And that's really, I think, has gotten worse since I've been here 20 years ago. But Marty, I want to switch topics and focus to the more fun issue of golf. Yeah, we're going to talk about golf. And really, my favorite book is called The Match. I read it before the first time I played Cypress Point. And you are the real life embodiment of The Match. And it really talks about, for those of you that haven't read the book, buy it. But it really talks about how in the early days, when Bobby Jones was the biggest player in America, in the world, amateur golf was seen as superior to professional golf. If you were a club pro, you were oftentimes looked down on as a gambler or swindler. And then in the 1950s and 60s and going forward, politicians and Hollywood A-listers and pro golfers started to intermingle, and they grew the game. I don't know if you wanted to talk about, the Bing Crosby clam bake and some of these events that really brought that together.
Yeah, I mean, I was invited to the Crosbys on several occasions because I was the congressional golf champ for so many years. So I would get an automatic invite, and it was really great in the early days before the corporates took over. You'd have a clam bake downtown Monterey where a lot of these celebrities would get up, and either comedians like Phil Harris would do something, or Vic Damone would sing, or Dean Martin would get up there and sing. They all were participating in this so-called friendship, which started, at Rancho Santa Fe in the early 50s with the Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, to me, did a lot to expand golf nationwide. And, you had some great players that people didn't know that much about, Sam Snead, Ben Hogan. I'm trying to think, used to have a tournament named after him. Byron Nelson won 11 tournaments in a row. I mean, there's nobody today who could ever win 11 tournaments in a row given the competition. But these were legendary people, but not many people knew about them until a guy came on called Arnold Palmer. I think Arnold Palmer changed the face of golf forever. And then Jack Nicklaus came on, the rival to Palmer, and that match was great. And so more and more people began to start looking at that. And golf back then, it was more charismatic stuff. People were talking. Palmer was a fun guy to be around, and a lot of the pros were fun to do it. I would get lessons from Peter Jacobson, and I get lessons from J.C. Snead or Payne Stewart. You'd be on the range, getting ready to play, and these guys would help you, joke around with you, have a great time with you. So it was that kind of camaraderie that spilled over into having celebrities. And the members of Congress were invited mainly because we were considered celebrities and the ability to bring other people who would then participate and donate to the tournament. And the big members that came in the Bob Hope, which was, I thought, the best pro-am ever created in golf. You get Tip O'Neill, you get Bob Michael, you get Joe McDade, and I played there. Danny Rostenkowski played there. In fact, they used to have a segment on every Sunday on the Bob Hope. They would show the members of Congress with a shot. There's Tip O'Neill. He got stuck in a bunker on the standard on the course out in I forget the name of the damn thing, out in Landmarks course. And he couldn't get out of the bunker. The bunker was so high. He took the ball and he threw it 3 times and still couldn't get it out of the bunker. You would see that on Sunday, and you would see Danny hitting balls. You'd see Michael hitting balls, and they would comment about it. And of course, I'd get a call from my friends of mine at the club I belonged to, say, "Hey, you missed that putt. You kind of choked on that one, didn't you?" So it was like a good thing to do. People enjoyed watching members. We were like just normal people. We made lousy shots. We hit screwy shots. I never forget Lee Trevino commented on, "Now this kid can play." So I watched him hit this one. So I was at the Palmer course. I hit like a 3-iron down about 200 yards of it. I had a little wedge to the green, and Trevino said, "Well, he'll probably stick it close." I sculled it. All the way across, down the ravine, up on the green. And Trevino says, "Well, I'm not used to him doing shots like that." But people would see that. They always thought that was good. I'm not so sure that's true today. Because social media covers him. They put him on the news saying, "Look what this guy is doing. What is he out here playing golf for?" It's like you don't have a life anymore because of social media. And then and some of the press today just got you kind of pressing. They just want to get you in a position and try to say it's horrible to play golf. I mean, how could it be horrible? You're making friends. You're making some key relationships nationwide that can help in making sure the country is read right. Listen, members of Congress don't have all the answers. There's a lot of people out in society know a hell of a lot more than members of Congress. I thought it was the greatest job in the world. I'm getting paid to learn things. And you have to understand, that's what we do. We don't, my jurisdiction was Ways and Means, but stuff would happen in transportation, agriculture, things I had nothing to deal with. And yet, that's how you're able to get information, learn about issues that you really, in your view, would never cross your table, but then you learned about it and you got to be like the jack of all trades. So you had to learn a lot more in voting on issues that were not in your purview. And I thought it was a great education. That's what we try to do, is help each other, like the guys from the farms that try to explain to the guys in New York, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have milk, you wouldn't have wheat, you wouldn't have. So understand, we have issues over here. We need your help. And several members on the Agri Committee were from New York who actually spent time with the ag members from the South and learned a heck of a lot about what was going on in agriculture. So, like I said, we didn't have all the answers, but it was easy to get answers.
That's great. Well, I want to back up for a second. Dan Jenkins, a senior writer for Golf Digest, played golf with you, and he wrote in the article that you were way too good at golf to be a servant of the people. So I'd like you to comment on that. But actually, if you wouldn't mind just backing up, how did you start playing the game? How old were you when you started playing the game? Just give us a little history.
Well, I started playing the game probably when I was close to 25 years old. After I got out of law school at age 23, I went to work for Justice John V. McCormick in the appellate court. I was his law clerk. I did that for about a year. And then I went to work for a local attorney out where I lived. And his name was Pete Russo. And he had a local practice, little real estate wills, little, domestic issues. And every Wednesday he'd take off. I was there about a month. And I said, Pete, where the heck do you go on Wednesdays? He said, well, that's golf day. I'm a member of Calumet Country Club. I go play golf every Wednesday. Oh, that's great. He said, do you play golf? I said, I don't even know what a golf club looks like. In my neighborhood, we couldn't afford stuff like that. In fact, there were no golf courses in my neighborhood. He said, well, if you want to make it as a lawyer, you better learn how to play golf. And I took him at his word, and I learned the game. My first teacher was a guy named Dave Mose at Calumet Country Club. And he was my teacher for about a good 8 years.
So you didn't even pick up a golf club until you were 25 years old. That blows my mind. Yes. That's incredible.
Well, I mean, I went to driving ranges on dates and hit the ball so far right, I was embarrassed. But in a driving range, you got all that room to hit it, so who cares?
Rob, right? a new motto for our show
but
should be: you can't get involved in politics unless you play golf. I mean, just like you were told, you can't get involved in law if you don't golf. That should be the same way in politics.
Well, I mean, I think it served me well. I think it served a lot of people well. I mean, it's a great sport, especially if you look at it as a way to meet people and spread your wings and get to know other people. I mean, like I said earlier, my best friend in golf is Danny Quayle.
That's great.
And we don't ever vote alike, but we're best of friends. I never forget, I was out to dinner one night with him and my son and his son Ben. We're in Phoenix and we're having dinner one night, and we're just jabbering back and forth, kidding each other. And Quayle looked over at his son Ben. He said, "Ben, this is what it used to be like."
Wow.
You see?
That's great.
And
we need more golfers.
Yeah. Well, remember, we played golf, we played basketball, we did a lot of stuff together, Dems and Repubs. Back then, we used to have 4:00 games in the house gym. 4:00 came, Dems, Repubs went down, and we didn't play Dems against Repubs. We just first 10 to play, then 5 come out, 5 go in. It didn't matter. And we did that until the bells went off, and then we'd run upstairs and vote. Looked like wet-heads. Well, Russ Likowski called us the wet-heads. But we did all that stuff there, and we went to dinner together. John Kasich's one of my dearest friends.
I heard that John Kasich plays as fast as President Bush. Is that true?
No one plays faster than President Bush. No one. I had the greatest time of my life playing golf with him in Holly Hills. He is just the quintessential person. He's just best president I served under. There's no question about it. And you can tell by what he did in 1990 on that budget deal where he raised taxes, not on individual taxes, but he did what was right for the country and ended up losing the election because of what Ross Perot did to him. But Bill Clinton was the beneficiary of everything George H.W. Bush did in his 4 years. Clinton was the beneficiary.
That statement alone doesn't happen in today's politics, where a Democrat member of Congress is giving credit to a Republican president. It just, I mean, you frankly, as a consultant, I have to tell my clients it's hard for them to do that because I know the backlash that they would get from the far right of our party if they did that. So that to me is very interesting. And I would love if you would just tell the story of complaining to President Bush that he didn't take you golfing. And
oh, well, it's very interesting. We were in Sonny Montgomery, who was very close to the president, got me involved in a paddleball game as George Bush's partner, the VP. I didn't know George Bush at the time, but Sonny said, "Come on, play me and Bill Archer, and you take the vice president." I said, "Okay, I'll take the vice president. Why wouldn't I?" And he's very good, by the way. He is a superb athlete. He would hit shots between his legs, around his back. I mean, he was a comedian out there, but he was very good, and he hated to lose. So that's how I got to meet him. And so one day, after he became, now remember, I was his paddleball partners for 11 and a half years. Anytime he came to the gym, I'd get a call or a beep or something. It's time to go down to meet with the VP or the president. So one day, Sonny saw me in the house. He said, "Well, you can't be too good with Bushy because he hasn't invited you to play golf recently." I said, "What are you talking about?" So they started naming names of guys that play with. I said, "God damn it, that irritates me." So I called him up. No, I didn't call him up. Sonny called him. So I'm in a health subcommittee meeting with senators. We're working on an issue, and my beeper goes off. And it says, "Call the office right away." So I go in the ante room and I call the office and said, "The president wants to talk to you." I said, "Oh, okay." So people could hear that, and they heard the noise in the beeper, and then they heard the comment, "The president wants to talk." And the flag vote was coming up the next day. So I'm sitting there talking, and he says, "I understand you're upset with me." I said, "Yeah, I'm upset. I put up with all your BS playing paddleball. I flew out from Tip O'Neill's golf line to play golf with you against these guys from Alabama. I had to fly in and play with you as VP. We beat them. You're happy, and now you don't invite me. Now that you're president, you're a big shot." He says, "I'll talk to you later." Boom, down with the phone. So I go out, and people say, "Oh, he's giving you a hard time about the flag vote." Well, the flag vote comes, and I voted against. I voted for the constitutional deal. Not, they wanted to make it so you can't burn the flag. I voted the other way, right? Didn't want to change the Constitution. So I'm in that same room. The beeper goes off again. President's on the phone. Boom, I go out. And these guys are saying, "Well, he's going to catch hell for what he did yesterday," right? So I go in the room. He said, "Meet me Friday morning, 10 o'clock, Oval Office." I said, "Why?" He said, "Just be there." I said, "Okay, just be there." So I go back out and said, "Did he give you hell about your vote?" I said, "No, he didn't give me hell. He just didn't understand it. We never even talked about it. Never talked about it." So then I get up the next morning and I head over to the White House dressed in my golf outfit and clubs in the car. I go over there and this guy dressed in a sport coat and is sitting down just outside the Oval Office. And I walk in there, I give my name. I sit down and I said, "I'm Congressman Russo." He said, "Well, I'm Dan Jenkins." "Oh, so you're the guy that writes for Golf Digest?" "Yeah." "Are you playing today?" "Yes." "Yeah, okay." So I said, "I guess we're sitting out here until the president decides to open the door for us." And he opens the door. "Come on in." And I walk in and I look and I go, "Sweetness, what the hell are you doing here?" Wow. It was Walter Payton. It just blew my mind. I said, so we started chatting and the president goes, "What am I, chopped liver? You don't even get to say hello to me?" I said, "Well, Sweetness is in the room." Anyway, so he says to his son, Jared, he said, "Jared, I'm going to go change my clothes. And I want you to go to this window and this helicopter is going to come. You see those white little things on the lawn? He'll put the wheels right on those white things. So you stay here and watch while I change clothes. And that's what happened. And Jared's staring out there, young kid, about 8 years old. Helicopter comes down, lands on those white squares. And so now we go outside, and it's hail to the chief. And I'm walking out, they got my arm around Peyton, and I say, I grew up in Taylor Street, which is the tough Italian neighborhood in Chicago. I said, if the people in my neighborhood knew I was getting on Marine One with the President of the United States, they would crack up. He said, well, guess what my friends would think from Mississippi if I was doing that. So we got on the airplane, we flew to the helicopter flew out to Holly Hills, and we played golf. And we get up on the first hole, and Peyton's ready to hit, and he's got an iron in his hand. And President Bush turns and says, well, what do you got an iron for? He says, well, this golf makes me nervous. I get nervous. There's people around. I'm too nervous. And Bush looks at him and says, well, you play football in front of 100,000 people every week. What do you mean you're nervous? He says, yeah, that's my sport. This isn't. So that's how it started. It was really fun. We had a great time. And a couple of times Bush would hit it in the trees, and I'd say, why don't those Secret Service guys throw the ball out, every once in a while? So, because we got this game going on against Jenkins and Peyton. So, do you know who Herbert Walker is? I said, yeah, they named the Walker Cup after. Well, guess what my middle name is? George Herbert Walker Bush. Bush would never, ever move a golf ball.
That's fantastic. Well, that quote is amazing, and it elevates him even further in my book, because that's one thing I love about golf. I mean, you got to be honest when you're out there. Everybody just expects it, and if you're not, I tell Rob and I talked about this last week. It's like if you go to lunch with somebody for 45 minutes, you really don't know if they're a jerk or not. You spend 4 hours with them on a golf course, you're going to know a lot about a person.
You'll find out a lot about a person on the golf course. Oh yeah.
Well, and it also, I mean, Rob and I both grew up in the same area. We grew up in the Upper Ohio Valley, not in wealthy families, and to be able to be involved in politics is a blessing of a lifetime. And when you hear, I think it's the greatness about America. Somebody that grew up in a poor Italian neighborhood, somebody that grew up in rural Mississippi, Walter Payton, are playing golf with the President of the United States and flying on Marine One. What a country,
Yeah, it's a great country. And sometimes I don't think our political figures understand what a great country really is.
So who are some of the other presidents that you played with, and any interesting tidbits from
I played with Jerry
him?
Ford. There's a long story, and I won't go into it, how I got to be very close to Jerry Ford. But he invited me to the Jerry Ford Invitational Tournament. And remember, I'm a Watergate baby. And about 5 or 6 guys from my class walked out on his State of the Union, January 75. And the Ford people were very upset with Democrats from the Watergate class, but I didn't do it. I wasn't one of them. So when I got invited by him personally to be there, the chatter all around was, what the hell is this guy doing here? He's a Democrat. He's a Watergate baby. He's not Tip O'Neill. He's not Danny Rostenkowski. He's not Bob Michael. What is he doing here? And so the guy said, well, all I can tell you, the boss wanted him here, and he's here. So I used to play when we used to have an amateur event the day before the tournament started. It was a 2-day tournament, Monday, Tuesday. Pros would fly up from the international tournament in Colorado. They fly up on a plane to Vail, and then they would play 2 days. So I would go up there, and we would play golf on Sunday. It was an amateur at Beaver Creek. So he says, Marty, I want you to drive the cart. And I said, okay, Mr. President, I'll do whatever you want. He said, now listen to me, Marty. There's going to be a lot of people out here wanting to come up and get my autograph and circle the cart. So I'm telling you, as much as I want to be with him, I'll be with him after the round's over, but we'll never get the round down if they stop me from playing. So he'd say, okay, see that crowd? Now go across the tee. I drive the cart and go right over the tee. And they go to another, and we would tee off, and they go, you see that, go, avoid that bridge, go this way, go around over. All these people waiting for him, and I'm moving the cart, and everyone's getting mad. Yeah, bring the president over here. And I'm just doing what he told me. And one of the nice things we ever did, we used to have a debate in Beaver Creek in the summertime between me and Jack Kemp about the budget, because I was on Ways and Means. I was also on budget. And Jack was another one of my best friends in Congress. Jack was, we didn't vote alike, but I had great admiration for Jack Kemp. He was one of the best. And we get in this debate, and everybody says, boy, I'd like to watch these two guys every day. This is really cool, you know? And we would go back and forth. Then we leave, we hug each other, and people go, I don't believe this. These guys actually like each other. That's what it was. It was really, it was a great time. And Jerry Ford was just absolutely the best. I sent you a clip where we're at the Bob Hope. We were at this, they used to have this thing called the All-American, Collegiate All-American Tournament at Morningside. And we'd raise money for scholarships for golfers in college. And Jerry Ford played in it every year, and I played in it, and all these celebrities would play into it. And it was fun. So, you know, I got to meet people I thought I never would get to meet. And to me, it's kind of shifted now. We've gone from the fun pro-ams where the individuals, the celebrities were always a part of it, to the corporate outings. You know, they cut back the Bob Hope Classic from 324 players like to 120. They cut back just this year, they cut back the old Crosby down as the AT&T Pebble Beach from 156 to 80.
Well, it's an elevated event now, and the celebrities aren't on TV nearly as much.
But
it's not as good.
Yeah, but in those days, there was a lot of camaraderie with the celebrities and the pro athletes. You know, I got to spend time with Roger Clemens and never knew what a beast he was until I was up close and personal, man. That is a big human. But he was fun to be with. He would chat with you. One guy on my team was Willie Gault. I'll never forget. Every caddy that was in our group for the pro, he raced him on the 18th hole. And he would send the guy out 25 yards ahead of him in a 100-yard dash, and he beat him by 20. That's how fast Gault was. He was like 50-some years old at the time. So you have celebrities like that. It was really fun. Nielsen, I forget, a funny guy from the Airplane movie. I forget his name. This is called Old Age.
Leslie Nielsen?
Leslie Nielsen. Yeah. He was a riot to play golf with. And so we always had a lot of fun playing. And then we'd get together afterwards. We'd go out. We would socialize. And then the tournament slowly got worse and worse. And, you know, and now it's nothing like the Bob Hope. Bob Hope to me was the premier pro-am event on golf.
Can you talk a little bit about your work on the committee to help the PGA Tour get their charitable status?
Well, Dean Beeman, as far as I'm concerned, was way ahead of his times. Even though some of the pros didn't care for Beeman when he was commissioner, he had vision of what he wanted the tour to be. And what he realized is that all these celebrity tournaments, Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, Dean Martin, Glenn Campbell, Jamie Farr, Dinah Shore, all these celebrities at some point were going to pass away. So how am I going to keep this going? So he realized that he had to get corporates involved. But we were doing a tax bill in 85, 86 that was going to limit the taxable deduction for these kind of charities to 50%. And that would stop him from being able to do that. Because unless the corporations got 100% deduction, they weren't going to do it. So he came to me and talked. In fact, I was lobbied by Tim Fincham, who worked for Danny Tate at the time. They were both guys from the Carter White House, and they were representing the tour, Dan Tate and Tim Fincham. And eventually Fincham becomes the commissioner. But what we did is that because it's such an event involving charity, we described a tournament that would get 100% deductibility if you met all these criteria. It was pretty heavy criteria. And the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour qualified for it. And so they got the 100% deductibility. And then all these big companies came in and put up the money and got a big deduction for it. So charity went out. Tournaments got to keep on going. And that's how it was back then. And I believe till this day, it's still in the code. But it was to help golf. The only reason I would even get involved in it was to help promote golf and keep golf going. And as a result, Beeman was able to get, Chrysler, the Bob O. Chrysler Classic, the AT&T Crosby, and every one of those tournaments, like the Northern Trust or the old Riviera tournament, all those tournaments, they got corporations because of what Beeman did in soliciting them to be part of a new culture and saying to them that if you put money into this, you're going to get the deductibility for it. And so it was something that really helped golf. Yeah, really was a big deal. And the old timers know it all. I mean, most of the people I dealt with in my career are on the senior tour. The Curtis Stranges, the Fuzzy Zellers, the Peter Jacobsons, the Glenn Days, the J.C. Sneed, the Tom Kites, the Ben Crenshaws. All those guys were with us. It was my generation. And Arnold Palmer, I'll never forget. Arnie would come up to me and say, "Hey, is Rostakowski still screwing us?" And I said, "No, Arnie, no, he did a good job for us. Trust me. He was magnificent. To be around Arnold Palmer was like I don't think there's any golfer that I would have enjoyed being more around than him. He was so much fun to be with." And
well, it's Masters Week, and we're all buzzing about the tournament. How many times have you played Augusta National? Is it your favorite course, and what's your favorite memory from there?
Well, it is my favorite course. I've played it about 10 times. And in 1987, November 13th, but who's keeping track of that? I shot 71. I shot 38, 33. On the backside, I eagled 15. I hit a driver, 3-iron, 3 feet. Made the eagle putt, birdied 17, and came in with a 71. Teed off the next day, and on the 15th hole, I hit driver, 3-iron, 2 feet from the hole for another eagle. Didn't quite shoot 71, but shot 74 that day. So that's my big memories. But one of the funny things, the last time I played, we played the course, and then we played the par 3. I shot 2 under on the par 3. I was so happy. I couldn't wait. I couldn't believe it. And our host said to us, he said, "Now listen, guys, get all your stuff out of the Butler Cottage." We stayed in the Butler Cottage. "And put it in your car, because at the end of the round here, you have to leave right away." So we're in our golf shorts, we're in our golf. We get done with the par 3, we go right to our cars. He said, "No, you don't have time to change your shoes. You got to get in the car. You have to leave right now." I said, "Why are we doing?" He said, "Well, the next group that's coming in already landed at the airport. They can't come in here until you leave."
Wow. So
we went to this gas station outside of the Masters to wash up, take our shoes off, and get dressed and head back to Bluffton, South Carolina. Yeah,
well,
it was.
What is the vibe like when you pull into Magnolia Lane? Walk us through the experience of the day. Are you on pins and needles, or are you relaxed and having a good time?
I can't pins and needles. I was like, did you ever have an out of body experience? You're there, but you don't really know that you're there. When you drive up Magnolia Lane, it's like, am I really here? Is this really the Masters? Is this Augusta National? That's what you say to yourself. And then you drive around. The first time I went there. Second time I went there with my son Tony, and we had to stay there because it was an in-town member. So an in-town member has to stay with you at the cottage. My son Tony was 16 years old. He hasn't been back since, but he birdied one. He birdied the first hole. He shot 78, I believe, that day. He was 16 years old. And I brought with him his golf coach, Father Robert Lee from Montgomery High School, who slept in the bedroom above the pro shop. He never forgot his day. And he's up there in heaven, and I hope he's giving me all the blessings I need so I get up there and play a few rounds with him myself. But that, it is like no other experience. When you get to Amen Corner, it's like you don't believe it's for real. I had a few balls over my time in Race Creek, but it's magnificent. And when I played it initially, for most of the time that I played it, there was no rough. Everything was fairway. If you hit in the trees, it was fairway.
Wow.
And so you never got a bad lie, no matter where you were. You never got a bad lie. I guess because the tire could hit the ball so damn far, they started putting a little rough. I believe the rough is about a half inch to an inch, maybe at the most, just to take the ability to spin the ball in case you get in the rough. But those guys are so good today, they can spin out anything. I never forget Calcavelli spinning the ball out of the rough. And I think it was in the Scottsdale tournament. And that's when Ping had those square grooves, and he hit this 5-iron out of this rough. He hit it on the green, spun back. So how the hell could that be? He hit out of the rough. That's when they analyzed his grooves to show square grooves, and they outlined the square grooves. Yeah.
Well, this is speaking of the golf ball, the most controversial question you'll get today. What do you think of the proposed rules to roll back the golf ball's distance?
Absolutely, they should do more than they're doing. They're killing old golf courses. I mean, look what Augusta's had to do. I mean, they're playing par fours at 478 yards. When I first learned the game, 478 for me was a driver, 3 was pitchy wedge. Today, those guys, it's a driver 9-iron, and they're par fours. So I really believe that they're wrecking the good average golf courses that were built in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And so for me, I'm all for them killing the golf ball. I mean, I like to see those guys take Jack Nicklaus's persimmon head driver with a tourney golf ball and try to hit it as far as Nicklaus hit it in his prime. Because Jack could hit it almost 30 yards with a persimmon head. Jack Nicklaus with this equipment and this ball in his prime would probably hit it 400 yards. You know, though I have to say, McIlroy came pretty close. He hit it 380 the other day. So, yeah, I think it's ruining good golf courses. You know, they can control how far that ball goes. And of course, all the equipment for older guys like me, it's helpful in the sense that, you know, we play the up tees, the forward tees. You got equipment that helps you get maybe extra 5 or 10 yards. That's the most I'll ever get out of the equipment. But the pros, they get 50, 60, 70 yards out of the equipment on a driver. I mean, could you imagine they're hitting 8-irons 175 yards? That's if they back off. You know, I figured the guy the other day had 245 yards to the green. He hit a 4-iron onto the green. Just so it's not only the equipment, but it's not just the golf clubs. The ball is the difference. The ball is definitely the difference.
Well, and if you talk to a lot of superintendents today, they'll tell you the same thing. They've all had to stretch the course, chasing distance, building new tee boxes, moving the bunkers for modern technology. They're spending millions of dollars doing this. And maybe they host a pro tournament 1 week a year, maybe 1 week every 10 years, or not at all. And they're trying to cater to PGA Tour distances. Well, all that extra acreage of turf, you have to water it, fertilize it, cut it every single day. And most private clubs don't have Augusta National's budget. So it's making the Cypress Points of the world obsolete. They used to be able to play it in pro tournaments. Now Cypress Point, they'd be driver lob wedge
They probably drive the first green.
I'm curious, but just a question on the golf ball. Do you think it should be a ball that the pros play and then a ball for everybody else? I've always found it interesting. Not everybody can play the same. What if everybody had to play the same exact ball on the court?
Well, I think Rob's point is right. I mean, we're building golf courses like we did at Congressional to host tournaments. But we, the members, we played every day. And so Bobby Jones Jr. once told me, the only way you can defend the golf course against the pros today is water and dog legs. In putting the bunkers in right where the ball would fall, or the lake right where otherwise it's defenseless against the way these people can play. And they hit it so darn straight. They they're so good. You know, there was no TrackMan in the days of Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan learned the game by beating it out of the ground. That's how he learned how to hit it. Ball after ball after ball. Today, they go with like Dustin Johnson did a couple of years ago before he won the Masters. He learned how to control his short game by the TrackMan. He knew if I took it this far, this is how far it's going to go. He watched it consistently on TrackMan. So they have all the tools you can possibly have to be that good, and they are. I used to, they had Wilson's custom staff not too far from my district in Melrose Park, Illinois, and so they had Ram too. And I would go down there to see these guys, and this guy John, who used to bend all the clubs for Sam Snead, and he would say, "Well, we're sending Sam, 8 clubs, 8 2-irons, 8 3-irons, 8 4-irons, 8 wedges." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, he plays them, and then the 2 that feel the best is what he takes." See, they didn't have precision shafts. They had no idea, 6.5, 7.5. They just, this felt good, and they played it. And that's what they did. The old guys, they would get all these clubs, and then now they bent it. They bent it with a hammer.
Yeah. Well, let me shift gears just a little bit, but in line with technology and golf, coming back to the fact that you didn't pick up a golf club until you were 25 years old, or really pick up the game, I should say, at 25 years old. How did you get proficient at the game of golf so quickly? And what advice do you have to our listeners that maybe they've just started their first job on Capitol Hill, they want to start playing golf, and they don't know where to start?
Get a pro. Meet a pro. Go get lessons. Before you goof thumbs up, and then you have to undo it. I was lucky. This guy, Pete, that I work with, was a member of Calumet Country Club, and I got a lesson from a pro right away. So that was an enormous benefit for me. And then, of course, I'm a workaholic in everything I do. And so I spent a lot of time practicing hitting balls, picking his brain. I'd have to go to driving ranges because I didn't belong to a club. And then I joined a place called Lincolnshire Country Club out in Crete when I was like 24, 25 years old. And, dues were like $15 a month, and spending was $10 a month, for junior members. And I would just, it was way far away from where I lived, but I'd go and pound rock all day long, hit balls, and go see the pro. Am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? My problem is I've taken from too many pros. My son, Tony, has only had one pro, Ed Oldfield. Ed shaped my son's swing, and up until just recently when Ed got to be 90 years old, he wasn't teaching anymore. My son never had another teacher until a new one now, Mike McGettrick. But I would say find someone you're comfortable with, stick with it, and just learn what they teach you. Now, I've had lessons from Butch Harmon, Jim McClain, Hank Haney.
Decent teachers, right? Just decent.
I mean, you take some of the top 50 pros. I bet you I've had lessons from about 20 of them, and everyone's trying to get you at the same spot, but they do it differently. So I was constantly changing my swing for all the wrong reasons. The fact that I have great eye-hand coordination is what got me by all the swing changes that I thought I made. Dr. Jim Suddy from Chicago. I mean, everybody has a different way how to get you through the impact area, but everyone hits the impact area the same. It's how do you get there?
Absolutely.
That matters, right? And so I always looked for the silver bullet because I was never happy. I was never satisfied that my game was where it was. I wanted it better. I got down to scratch at one point. Then I moved up to a 2, and then I moved up to a 4, and now I'm like a 14. I'm happy to be able to swing with 2 new knees and a new shoulder. I'm just happy to get out there and knock it down the aisle. I'm a guy that believes in play it forward. I'll find the most forward tee I can find, and I'm playing from that tee. But all I want to do is enjoy the game. It's no more me having to show what a good player I am. So I'm not.
Well, just so you know, at no point this year am I giving you 14 strokes. I've seen you play, and it's not happening.
Bottom dollars, you're going to give me 14 strokes. But I earned that 14. Trust me. But anyway, it's been something that's been a joy in my life, and it's what I love about golf is no matter what age you're at, you can play the game. I can't play basketball anymore, much as I love playing basketball. I can't play baseball anymore as much as I love playing baseball. I love playing hockey. I can't play hockey anymore. But golf I can play. I can't play tennis anymore. I can't play racquetball anymore. I can't play paddleball anymore. All the games I played as a youngster, I can't do any of them except one. It's called golf. And I'm just happy to do it.
Congressman, I have a saying with my friends if we're out playing and it's getting close to dark. I say you want to get a shotgun 9 in, play quick 9 as fast as we can before dark. I have some questions. I'd like to do a little shotgun 9 with you. Short answers.
Sure.
If you need to expound on some of them, go for it. But
You can't
Hey,
give a politician a mic and say short answers.
Hey, I have my own shotgun
let's
9
just
for him,
take
so
turns,
we might
Rob,
have to
and
do
we'll do
both.
shotgun 18. How about that? But
We'll see.
Congressman,
Yeah,
you
let's
know
do
that
it.
Rob is from Steubenville, Ohio, the home of Dean Martin, and you mentioned Dean Martin multiple times. Did you ever play golf with Dean Martin?
No, I never played golf with him, but I met him and was around him, but never played golf with him. No.
All right, Rob, your turn.
Okay, separate from their reputation, which has better architecture, Augusta National or Pine Valley? Better golf course?
Oh, Augusta National by far. I've played Pine Valley once, shot 72. I've never been back.
All right, what's
I can't
the
improve
first
on that.
time you shot your age?
66.
If you have what choice between one more round, Pebble Beach or Cypress Point?
Cypress Point.
What percentage of members of Congress played golf when you served?
Oh, quite a bit. We used to have the member tournament. We'd fill the 18 holes and then a couple of holes double. So about 100 and some members. It was a lot of
Okay,
fun.
so Paul,
back then.
as you were the congressional champion, so there was an actual members tournament. How long did that go on? When did that end?
It went on until they changed the rules about gifts and all that. So I won 19 in a row. I only served 18 years, so I had to go into when I was out of Congress. And then about 4 or 5 years since I was out of Congress, they changed all the rules, and members started saying, "Well, I'm not going to come in if I got to worry about reporting a dozen golf balls or a golf bag that I won." And see, I won a long drive golf. Bill Soprolis had this company down in his district in Texas that made golf bags, and they made them with Congressman Russo. So they had the long drive golf bag. So I won the long drive. I gave it to Jim Clyburn. It's still in his office. So when you go to Clyburn's office, you see that big bag says Congressional Long Drive Champ. He got it from me.
Your turn, Rob.
Greatest golfer of all time, Tiger or Jack, in their prime?
Jack Nicklaus.
So you were the best member of Congress at golf. Who was the best Republican, though?
Danny Quayle.
Who's the best Speaker of the House in your lifetime?
In my lifetime, Nancy Pelosi.
All right, speaking of leaders in Congress, just give me a few words about Carl Albert from Oklahoma.
Always got what he wanted done. He was very quiet and shy, but he was powerful. Remember what happened in the '68 convention? He got mad at Dan Rostenkowski because Lyndon Johnson says, "This guy's not controlling the crowd. You move him over." And that's why Dan Rostenkowski was never speaker, because Albert then was against him. But I'll tell you a quick Albert story. You know how short Albert was, right? About 5'2".
Little
5'3".
giant from Little Dixie, right?
Little giant, nice guy, nicest guy in the world. And so you go in after you get sworn in the House floor, then you go in and see the speaker individually and get sworn in. So Rostenkowski says to me, and I never knew Rostenkowski before I went for Congress, so I didn't have any history with him at all. So now I'm a member, and of course now he likes me. He said, "Now look, Albert's short. So when you go in the office, sit in the chair and don't get up. Just sit there because you tower over him." I said, "Okay." So I go in there with my wife, my mom and dad, my son Tony, and I go in there and I sit down in the speaker's office, off the floor, not where Tip O'Neill was. It's right off the floor, the ceremonial office that now the sergeant, the parliamentarian has. So I'm sitting down, and we're chatting. Albert's talking to me, talking to my parents. What a great day! It's such a great day. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm sitting there for about 3 or 4 minutes. I was just sitting in the chair. I'm waiting for them to take a picture. And Dev O'Neill was a guy, and Keith Jewell, they took the pictures, right? I'm sitting in this chair. About 5 minutes go by. Albert comes up and he says, "Congressman, are you ever going to stand up for the picture?" So I got this picture of me, and Albert's down to my chest, and Rostakowski set me up. I sat in that chair because I was told not to get up.
Okay, rapid fire. One word. The first word that comes to mind for each of these presidents' golf game. We'll start with Jerry Ford.
About a 90.
George Bush Sr.
About 88, 89.
Bill Clinton.
About, I would say 88.
Was he fun to play
He
with?
was a riot. We're playing. We
Go ahead.
have a fivesome. This is the day that Hillary's brother is going to marry Barbara Boxer's daughter, Tony Rodham and Nicole Boxer. So we have an outing at RTJ the day of the wedding. The wedding's in the afternoon. So we get out there. The foursome is myself, Congressman George Miller, fellow, I always forget his name, from Baltimore, and the president. I think Michael Bromfield is the other fourth. So we're the middle foursome. And so we're playing, and the president, he'll take a couple extra shots, but he plays the first one. At least with me, he played the first one. But he'll say, let me see this, let me see this. So we get to the 17th hole in RTJ, and George Miller is on the right. He's a terrible golfer. He's on the right side of the bunker on 17. And so President Clinton, sorry. He says, George, I hit a flop shot? And George says, what's a flop shot? He said, well, let me show you. Goes in his golf bag, takes out about 10 balls, and puts them down by the bunker. And he's showing George how to hit flop shots because the pin was cut up front. And so Clinton did okay. He wasn't perfect on flop shots, but he's trying to show George. Well, George's a horrible golfer, so then we had to get those 10 balls, put them down, and George had to hit them. And George is sculling them everywhere, hitting them fat, chipping them into the bunker, sculling. So President goes, George, you got to look at this. So I say, now we just hit 20 golf balls, right? The guys behind us can't even catch up, can't get close to us because they keep them back. So the president's group was all by itself, and the guys in front of us, they're gone. They're in the clubhouse. So I say to the president, I say, Mr. President, we have a wedding today. We're getting close. We have to. He looks at me and says, Marty, do you think they would start without me?
Oh, that's great.
That's beautiful.
He was great. Those are my favorite. But I love Jimmy Carter. He didn't play golf, but Jimmy Carter was turned out to be the best ex-president that we've ever had. He wasn't too well liked when he was president. But
did you ever play with George W. or Obama or Trump?
No.
What do you miss more?
Matt?
St. Patrick's Day parades in the bitter cold in Chicago, or knocking doors in Kansas City neighborhoods?
I miss St. Joseph's Day table, the Italian table. That's what I miss. All those Italian sweets and pasta and all the stuff that we used to do. It's how I met my wife.
Amazing.
At the St. Joseph's Day table at DePaul University. March 19th, 1963, 1:30 in the afternoon.
What's your biggest goal for your golf game this year?
To be able to play. That would be, if I can get out there and play 18 holes, I'd be happy.
And tell Matt how many holes in one you had.
That's 6.
Amazing.
And only 1 on the golf course I played on, and 4 on the golf course I'd never seen again. Imagine that. You think of how many times I've played RTJ in 31 years I've been there, played those par 3s. I've got 1 hole in 1 on the 4th hole. I've played Congressional now 17 years, and I haven't had 1 hole in 1. I've played Silverado once and never played it again, made a hole in 1.
Well, the odds are just so astronomical, and that's what my dad came down from West Virginia this year to play golf, and he got 2 hole-in-ones in 1 week in Oklahoma in October. It was one was actually a really good shot. One was absolutely lucky, but the odds of that are just unbelievable. You think about it.
Well, you got to be lucky.
My last question: who do you have winning the Masters this year?
Well, I'm very pro-American, so I'm pulling for either Dustin Johnson or Jordan Spieth.
All right, and my last question, and we made it well over an hour without anything current politics.
Good.
Regardless of your politics, who will be president on January 20th, 2025?
Okay. Joe Biden. That shouldn't surprise
All
you.
right. It doesn't surprise me. You're a smart man. Sorry, Matt.
Plus, he's the godfather of my granddaughter. I baptized Gabrielle.
Was he a good golfer?
Yeah, I did. When I played with him back when he was VP and when he was a senator, he's about a 7-8 handicapper. He could hit it. He can move it. I'm sure as president, he hasn't spent as much time on a golf course. But he's a great guy. He's done a lot of good for the country, and I hope he's rewarded for it. It's a horrible climate to be in these days. Horrible.
Well, Congressman, we really appreciate all your time on the show today. I can't think of a better guest for the Golf and Politics podcast. And Matt,
we may have reached our ceiling
we may be in trouble. This might be the last interview because I think we've basically covered it and proven our thesis that politics is about trust and relationships, and there's no better way to build trust and relationships than on a golf course.
This was an absolute honor. Thank you for taking the time to do it, and I hope that
my pleasure. I'd do anything for my son, Rob.
Well, I hope we have the opportunity
for you too.
To maybe get on a golf course sometime, play. That'd be an honor of a lifetime, and I'm sure there's so many other stories that we didn't get into.
Well, as soon as I'm able to play, Rob should invite you out to RTJ and we'll play.
I have to police his activity because I'll see him out there trying to chip balls and putt, and he needs to be resting and healing.
Yeah.
So
that's you're talking about me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping. The shoulder was doing really great until I screwed it up, but nobody else to blame. It's over trying to get it healed too fast, and it doesn't work that way. You just, it's at 80 years old, you don't heal as fast as you did when you were 40 years old. So well,
I'm not giving you any strokes because I'm buying lunch anyway.
Well, that's good. So, I'll lay down for that.
So there's a deal.
Well, great, guys.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you guys. Nice seeing you. Rob, love you. I'll see you soon. Matt, hope the place.
I love you too.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care. We'll see you.